From the Des Moines Register, it's time for Rekha's Voice to find out what is going on.
Good morning.
And how
it's good
are you?
to see. I'm well, although it's such a dreary, gray day.
Gloomy.
Yeah, it's gloomy.
Yeah.
I know, and it's sort of going on. So I don't know. How do you stay so vibrant, Jack?
Coffee.
Smart. I'll have to take it up.
What do we have?
We're talking about sex today.
Yes.
That's all we talk about in this segment anymore.
It's true, actually.
War and sex.
It's all right.
What is going on?
It's good for
with
ratings.
that?
That's all right.
Well, religion, war, and sex, and those things are very closely interrelated, actually. So my column today, but actually, as I look through the paper today, I see three different stories, or including my column, that have to do with sexuality that are not about sex per se, but are about wars around sex and problems around sex and social decisions and judgments around sex. So I think this is an interesting entry point for what I'm writing about today, which is about the BDSM community, which I wrote about a little bit back in February when the movie 50 Shades of Grey came out. And a man approached me, and he had been a member of this club called SIPEX, which is devoted to sort of kink activities, or BDSM as they're called.
Which a lot of people would never have known existed unless they heard your conversation.
Right, and that was, but unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, this was kind of more of a warning signal on this man's part because he had not had a good experience there.
Okay.
And he was bringing up issues about the background of one of the board members and also things that he felt were sort of borderline breaking the rules that were done. Anyway, I was later contacted by someone who is a member and has been a member of that club for, like 3.5 years, including as a board member, who I've known him, but I never knew he was involved because there is so much secrecy and stigma around this whole thing that you wouldn't know who's involved. But that stigma and secrecy, I think, and he thinks, contributes to this kind of sense of that there's something shameful or sleazy going on, and that it needs to be brought out into the open, especially in the interest of keeping people safe who are going to be engaging in this. So this man offered to use his name and put a human face and a public face on the BDSM or the kink community. His name is Elton Davis, and I've known him in various contexts. He's a very reliable, trustworthy person, and a person of integrity. And he wanted to talk about sort of the reason why a club like this exists is to make sure that the practice of alternative sexualities like BDSM are safe, sane, and consensual. And there is an organization called Sexual Freedom, something for the Society for Sexual Freedom, and this is some of their principles too. So by safe, they mean that they educate people on how to do certain things. And of course, if anything involves bondage, domination, sadism, and masochism, there is huge potential for it going too far and being hurtful to people in ways that they don't want to be hurt. So there are rules that have to be learned, and there are sort of safe words, and then there are also safe calls. And I didn't know this. A member of this club can make a call to a board member if they're going to be meeting someone for an encounter and don't really know that that person is reliable or trustworthy. And those folks at the club will follow through, and if they don't hear back from the member, they'll actually sort of call the police or take pains to figure out that they're safe and okay. And as Elton Davis said to me, how many people do you know in the mainstream community that have that? If you pick up someone at a bar, where's the safety mechanism to make sure that you're
Or even if somebody goes on a date.
Or even if someone goes on a date. Or even if someone goes to a college campus, and goes to a party. There is so much potential, as we know, for sexual assault in college campuses, especially when there's drinking and things involved. One sort of touchy subject that I had to broach with him is, what if someone has been abused as a child, let's say sexually abused, and is sort of perpetrating the same pattern on themselves that was done to them as a child? And he said, we would not accept anyone like that. If they are hurting themselves in ways that replicate a pattern in which they were hurt, we don't accept people like that, and we don't engage with people like that. And then, of course, consensual is hugely important. So, I guess my conclusion from talking to him is, yes, these clubs have to operate by the rules, and they have to make sure that they're being scrupulously honest, and that when things are faceless, when names are not attached, it's easy for things to be said that are not necessarily accurate and misinformation to get spread. But that stigma and shame are just real blocks against people having information that keeps them safe and keeps these relationships healthy. So it is important to have an organization like that that's looking out for people who want to engage consensually. So I really applaud this man for actually naming himself and coming forward. Elton Davis, thank you. He is so nervous about this that he says he probably won't even read the column, and that it terrifies him. But on the other hand, he says something that is secret is more scary, and we want to demystify and
Just put
break
it out
down
in
the
the
mythology.
open.
Exactly. So that's what he's done.
Well, good job out of him then.
So yeah.
So you just kind of wanted to show the other side of something you discussed before.
I wanted to give him a chance to have his say, as an individual, but also somewhat on behalf of this CIPEX community. CIPEX is the name of the group. So that people don't think that, that I was trying to condemn it wholesale in my last column, certainly, but also that there is definitely a benefit, if people are adults and doing things that are consensual, to having an organization that teaches them how to do it safely.
There you go.
Now, speaking of sex, religion, and war, I didn't know if you were going to touch on the Dowling Catholic thing. Are you investigating that at all?
I am going to be writing about that, and there is, this protest tomorrow, I believe, or on Friday. I think it's on Friday, of students from Dowling who are going to be protesting the termination of this man who was a coach and also a substitute teacher at the school. And I mean, I think that the hypocrisy here is that it was okay to hire him. Dowling was fine with him, and he was always openly gay, until it came time for him to apply for a permanent position, and then they say no, he can't have that, because he was offered it, but then they saw his Facebook page, I guess, and learned that he was gay and in a serious relationship, and said no, we can't have this. So where is the, I don't know, I mean, certainly it's
there's
lawful.
more to this story than meets the eye.
There is, and certainly it is absolutely legal for a religious organization, and we have talked about this before, to be able to put limits on who it hires. But really, I mean, in an era when the Pope himself is saying, who am I to sit in judgment on whether someone is gay or not, is this really what Jesus would do, Jason?
Oh, don't put me on the spot. I've got kids to feed. I've decided that I don't want to hear ever again what anyone else does with their genitals. I don't want to hear it anymore.
It's interesting that this is coming about with Indiana and everything else, and the buzz of that, and now in a state that does have laws that protect people that are gay, we're still able to do things that discriminate. That are
discriminatory, exactly, because there are these loopholes for religious organizations. But I think what is so fascinating here is that young people, if you look at the polls about young people's attitudes towards sexual orientation and people being gay, they are so overwhelmingly like, we don't care, that's fine. But now there's a bit of a cultural clash going on within Dowling between its young people who feel that way and, the administration, who is still clinging to this very, I think, narrow-minded view.
But religious beliefs
I can't wait
that
to
they
see
stick
what
to.
you
So
dig up on this.
We'll have to follow along with that.
Good.
I will be, and then of course there's this other story about the Ray Horns trial. When a married couple has sex, but one of the partners has Alzheimer's and cannot give, necessarily vocal consent, what are the boundary lines between, what's forcible and what's consensual? So a lot of issues about consensual coming up, and it's good that we're having these public conversations. It's really important because everybody's having sex. We know that in one form or other.
Jason saying, I've been married how long now? Okay. All right, well, check it out in the paper today.
Do whatever you like. I don't want to hear about it. I don't really care.
17A.
Have fun with whatever it is.